Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Shadow and Sun Show, and welcome back to another installment of the Terran Trade Authority books. These are the Galactic Encounters. This one, I believe, is number 4. That's right, number 4. Worlds at War, Settlers in Space, and Space Patrol are next, although I may do them out of order because Settlers in Space is actually on the way, because I didn't actually have that one. A couple of reminders: if you are looking for these, do your due diligence and make sure they are in the best condition as possible. One of the ones I received was in not so great condition, like this one. Pages falling out, and there's really not a lot you can do in the way of gluing. This one actually had some pages that they attempted to tape back into position, and the tape is now brown because it was probably a long time ago, and Scotch tape is just not the way to go. And like I said, gluing them is also, you're gonna end up having a hard time turning the pages if you're not really careful. And they're so thin. There's only about 60 pages in these books, 64 pages, so you're really not going to get a lot of play and a lot of wiggle room for the pages to move or be, rebound. Maybe you could take it to a professional if such a thing exists, but probably cost you more to have it done than to just, like I said, do your due diligence and ask before you buy them. Make sure they're in good condition, and if they're not, don't take any grief from sellers that try to push off these books in less than stellar condition. Pardon the pun, or pun intended. I'm not sure, but let's get into this one. This one is, for the most part, more of a history book than the other ones, and so far it's my least favorite. Not because it's falling apart, but because there are no characters to really get attached to. Not even any admirals or commanders. There's one mentioned in one instance, but it's so brief as to be, almost non-existent. But this book deals with the 3 major interstellar wars of the Terran Trade Authority, culminating in the really big one against the Phelan over the course of the 400 or 500 years depicted in this book and in the overall Terran Trade Authority timeline, going up to the year 2600, I think, is the end of the line for this series. But this one was still pretty good. A lot of really great battles of interstellar conflict. That was one of my favorite, even though it's this one's not in space. This one's actually within an atmosphere. This one actually struck me pretty strongly as well. It's just a massive battle in space, and ultimately the Phelan War more or less comes to a stalemate when the Terran forces drive the Phelans back to their home system and deciding not to press the attack. Mind you, these two empires are 1,000 light years apart, which is really a massive distance. And the way space travel is handled here is very different from role-playing games. And this book, I should say, got me into thinking about these stories and how strange it must have been to write them without a role-playing game context. I know many authors have done that before, but they usually center it around, like I said earlier, characters in the story. And these, there really aren't that many characters to talk about. There's some inventors that are mentioned and a few commanders. And in some of the other books, there were crew members and characters that got involved in stories, but those are the exception so far. It's mostly, travel logs, if you will, of the worlds of the Terran Trade Authority, and it does give you a lot of ideas, like I've said many times, about creating your own sci-fi universe, whether it be just writing or for a role-playing game. Mostly, obviously it's a role-playing game channel, so I was looking at it in that respect, and there are definitely some ideas, but mostly, honestly, things to not do, like have an interstellar war that's 1,000 light years apart. There's so much that's going to happen in between such a vast distance as to make it pointless as to why there's even a conflict. There's plenty of room in between the two empires to mine resources, which is ultimately what it's always going to be about. Is oh, this world has resources, we want it, well, we want it too, and then there's a war, and I'm like, just shove on down the road and find another world. But this was 1979, and things have changed so drastically. Especially, it was really weird. I'm going to tell a little story that shows the massive gap between 1979 and today. Both DM James and myself recently have been watching videos about Richard Feynman, the astrophysics Nobel Prize-winning scientist who has been resurrected through AI videos talking about different things, how impossible it would be for aliens to come to see us and vice versa. One video he and I both watched was the one about, the transporter. Once you get in the transporter, you're dead because it just kills you and just remakes a facsimile of you somewhere else. But it turned out the deacon at my church brought up the same videos that, and mind you, I have no contact with my deacon at church other than, saying hi and bye every Sunday. And he brought it up in the sermon this morning, actually. And I was just, I almost, I had to control my desire to laugh out loud, because it was like, what a small world, James is in Florida, I'm here in California, and I'm not sure where my deacon lives, and we never have any contact, but all three people, two people in my life anyways, were getting the same videos recommended to them. But the deacon was talking about how difficult it probably must be for any intelligent life to come visit us because of the distance and the ever increasing demand on more and more fuel to carry more and more fuel, at least from the technologies that we understand. And obviously, in most role-playing games these days, fuel is somehow magically taken out of the equation, but you still have water and you still have other cargo and supplies that are needed that can just as easily take up the space of fuel in that regard to the equation, that it's just you're never going to be able to build a ship big enough unless you have some groundbreaking new technology that would allow such things to be possible. So I'd like to ask you guys how you would do your space travel. What sci-fi trickery would you use to allow for gigantic, enormous starships to be able to go from point A to point B and still be able to carry everything and not, the science not break down because of the requirements. Because I've been thinking a lot about that, how you do it. There's a lot of ideas, a lot of different game mechanics that do that, but I haven't been able to pick one that I really like yet, especially after watching these videos. It makes me think, gosh, it's probably not possible, is it? Or is it? I'm going to leave that up to you guys to help me out with this one. Feel free to drop it in the comment section below, and maybe I could, come to terms with how I would pull that off in a game without going against some of the things that I now think are probably true. Until then, folks, I will see you guys tomorrow with Two for Tuesday. I got my Barrels and Borderlands game later this evening, so I'll give you the review recap on that, as well as another bonus video tomorrow morning, and we'll see what else happens. Hopefully I'll be able to hang out with some of my friends more this week during the mornings and afternoons. We also have a new show coming up probably next week, but we'll talk more about that later, like Friday if it works out. Until then, folks, have yourself a great afternoon, an absolutely stellar week, and I will see you guys all in the funny papers.